We've seen the future and it's called Singapore.
Yeah, and we're not being flippant here. We spent just 2 days in Singapore and we were left thinking like it's nowhere else on earth. But was it too good to be true? Well, we're going to tell you what we think at the end of this video from our perspective.
Yeah, the perspective of people who've been there for 2 days. But there was one thing that we thought, oh, come on, Singapore, you can do better than that. More on that later.
There's only just so much you can fit into a couple of days anywhere on this earth of ours, let alone somewhere as diverse and interesting as Singapore.
Yes, the city is famous for its modern skyline, but that doesn't actually tell the whole story. The ethnic makeup of this city is 74% Chinese, 13% Malay, 9% Indian, with the remainder being the other column. And it was wonderful to find that beyond the high-rises, there is an altogether more traditional side of Singapore. We spent time getting lost in the streets of Little India and then meandering down towards Chinatown. Everything here felt more real, and we started to see how the people of Singapore interact with each other, as well as the interlopers such as us.
Politeness isn't just how the people of Singapore operate, it's part of the fabric of the society. How they interact with each other, the tone of their voice, and overall politeness is an important part of the Singapore way of life. And they aren't playing at politeness. This is how the people of Singapore really are. As with almost any country we visit, what we try and do is as soon as we land at the airport, we look to use a rideshare app to get to our accommodation. That way, it's a great way to actually start meeting the local people before you even check in. And Singapore was no different. However, this time the experience in the car was very different. Our driver Lim was happy and seemed excited and privileged to have us in his car. By the end of the journey, he not only filled us in on how outsiders like us should view Singapore, but also we learned about his 2 daughters, what they did for work, and we both got out the car feeling genuinely happy to be here. Lim really had whetted our appetite for Singapore.
But you've gone straight into this without talking about the airport, and that's doing it a bit of disservice, to be honest.
Fair comment.
Changi Airport is a real transport hub, and it lends itself to a place that you can spend a short time before moving on to another destination.
Changi is also a destination in its own right. Literally steps from the check-in desk of the airport is a mega mall that has its own man-made waterfall as its centrepiece.
Well, you say waterfall, but it's actually a rain vortex, I think.
Is it?
Yes, not only that, but it's actually the tallest indoor rain vortex in the world.
Wow. So Changi has got the world's tallest indoor rain vortex
in the world, right?
In the world. So what's the second tallest?
Hey?
Also airside, there's even a day club pool set up. What a place.
Space is at a premium in Singapore, which makes choosing where to stay a bit tricky, to be honest. Do we stay at the centrepiece Marina Sands at $400 a night?
Probably not. No, so we searched and found the Leaf Ivy Park, which was a funky, interesting little hotel right on the edge of Little India and only cost us $128 a night. I can't believe I'm saying only cost us $128. In Singapore, that just feels like a bit of a steal, to be honest. So let's take a little look around our room. Unusually, we've got a sink right inside the front door with a mirror above. And then opposite is the toilet, and next to that, the shower area. All very clean and functional. A nice little desk and a bed tucked into the corner of the room. You could store luggage underneath the bed, but we were only there for a couple of nights, so we just used our suitcases and stacked them at the end. We call this a hotel, but in many respects it's much like a hostel with open areas to meet other travellers, somewhere for you to do your washing, and also somewhere to get fit. Moving outside, there's an area to meet other travellers here also, as well as something I've not seen before, which is a kitchen area with multiple sinks, stovetops, and even places for you to store your own food. The other great thing about this hotel was it was right next to the Farrer Park metro station, which connected us to all areas of Singapore. We used that to get around town when we needed to.
And so we started our time in Singapore by heading out to get lost. starting by seeing the local areas such as Chinatown and Little India, and also headed up to the Arab Street area, and doing this is where Singapore really comes into its own. All of those districts are so easy to walk between, so we did. We shunned the public transport for this section of our trip and we just wandered.
Sarah mentioned a moment ago about getting lost, and this is something we actually heard on a podcast recently, can't remember which one, so can't link it below sadly. But this is the concept of getting lost. Rather than having an itinerary and saying, today we're going to go out and see this, then we're going to see this, then we're going to see this, and then we're going to see this, which I have a propensity to do that kind of thing. Yeah. Just to go out, head in a direction and get lost. Now, I wouldn't recommend doing this everywhere in the world. Not everywhere is as safe as Singapore. But in somewhere like Singapore, just heading in a direction and seeing what you see is a great thing to do. One slight thing to be aware of in somewhere like Singapore, you may have heard Singapore gets a little bit hot and humid.
Oh,
yes. Yeah, it does get a little bit hot and humid from time to time, and that's where you take advantage of shops where you can just dip in and get a little bit of the air conditioning. 7-Eleven, that's a little tip all over Southeast Asia. If you want a bit of aircon, get into 7-Eleven. Don't know what their electric bill must be, but it's pretty incredible. Also, stop every now and again to get yourself a drink.
This probably says more about us and our preconceptions than anything, but Chinatown, Little India and Arab Street were nothing like we expected. Not sure what we did expect. Maybe for everything to appear clinical and maybe not real. But these areas are real, and you can see that Singapore really is a grounded country.
That's right. And in walking around, you can see that these are real areas, as Sarah says. In Little India, there were many shops trading on the streets, just like any other Little India area that we've seen on our travels around the world. And then in Chinatown, we could actually see people in the street playing mahjong and backgammon, and they were quite happy for us to mingle in with them and watch them as they did that. And this is one of the nice things about Singapore, and something that we didn't expect, that it is just so real. Sarah and I are travelling the world. We retired about 2 years ago to travel for the next 10 years. And everywhere we've been, we like getting in and seeing the gritty nature of the place that we're in. And we were thinking that Singapore, we aren't really going to see that. It is going to be clinical, we thought. But actually, no. You get into the heartland of Singapore and it's as beautiful and wondrous as anywhere that we've been. We had to see everything we've seen in the photos around Marina Bay Sands. And it was more impressive in real life than we could ever see on camera. And that's actually pretty rare, because you can often do some really clever work with video to make things that don't look that impressive look a little bit better. Now, you don't need to do that in the Marina Sands area of Singapore. If you take a photograph in Singapore around the area and it doesn't look impressive, that says more about your photographic skills than anything it could say about Singapore. Because every vista, everywhere you look, there's something photogenic that you can get on camera.
The highlight of our time here in Singapore was seeing the light show at the gardens by the bay. It was really extraordinary, though one part of this did disappoint us, and we'll come on to that in a minute.
We are in Singapore. We've been here for about 24 hours now, and just absolutely loving Singapore. It's a pretty wonderful place, and we can't quite believe we're sat under these things we've seen on so many videos before. So, is Singapore too good to be true? Well, we really think not. To be around the Singaporean people, and it's always about people, that's what makes a place, felt really good. It's a very, very respectful nation. They were pleased to have us there, as pleased as we were to be there. The diversity of Singapore really adds to the richness of the society, and we love that.
Did you know that in Singapore it's considered rude to speak loudly, and also they avoid using the word no for fear of offending you?
No, I didn't. Or as they would say in Singapore, I was unaware of that information because I don't like saying the word no. In fact, there's that game, isn't there, where you've got to get someone to say the word no. You know that game, don't you?
Not falling for it, Neil.
But I actually asked that
I'd have
question
said
wrong.
yes.
Yeah, you'd have said yes. I got it wrong, didn't I?
Yeah.
Oh, so I've got it wrong again. I'm rubbish at this. Thing about Singapore, it's got a lot going for it, but there are areas like any country of the world where, you know, we'd like to see improvement. And one of those areas is it's not as liberal a society as we would like. For instance, the LGBT community is not really well supported in Singapore. But it's like any other country of the world. Coming in, you can always say, well, this is wrong, that's wrong, but you've got to look closer to home as well. UK hasn't exactly got it all right itself. Everywhere needs to improve, and I'm hopeful that all of you think that about your country as well. Unless you come from a perfect country, stick it in the comments below, because we want to visit the perfect country. We haven't found it yet. But there's a few things that we need to tick off the list. If we don't get these into a video about Singapore, this can't be considered a Singapore video.
No.
These are absolute basics. No, you can't chew gum in Singapore. It's the law. Secondly, it's clean. It's super clean.
Super clean.
There are surveillance cameras everywhere, and it's very, very safe. It's actually the 9th safest country in the world, and the UK is 34th.
Yeah. Well.
I'm surprised it's as high as that. It's probably gone up since Sarah left, actually. She's made it a bit safer by heading out of the country. And also, I say about the chewing gum, I didn't actually see anyone chewing gum.
Well, I didn't see it in the shops. I don't think they even sell it.
No, so anyone watching, maybe you want to test this for us. Maybe it is you are able to do it there. So head to Singapore, go out on the street and start throwing chewing gum in. Maybe throw it on the floor and rub it in. See how it goes. If you're not thrown in prison, let us know. And so we think that Singapore is doing a lot right. Sarah explained that we saw the light show at the gardens by the bay, and it was extraordinary. It was wonderful. It was a visual feast. Audio, not such a feast, to be honest. We were hoping there'd be something maybe culturally appropriate or something very dramatic. Yeah, dramatic. All this stuff's going on. We didn't expect to hear hi-ho, hi-ho by the Seven Dwarfs, but alas, we did. You know, come on, Singapore. You can do better than having the Seven Dwarfs on the Gardens by the Bay show, surely.
As Neil said, we are into our second year of travels, and we've learnt a lot by our poor packing and luggage choices in the past.
Yeah, but we think we've nailed it. We really think we've nailed it. In next week's video, we spill the beans on everything we take with us and some of the clever things that we do to absolutely maximise how we travel. Not only that, we're going to share a tip that we haven't seen any other YouTuber share before. A unique tip that everyone should do that's travelling this world of ours. So we really hope you've enjoyed our little trip around Singapore. But Sarah, just one last thing.
You've been watching To Go Rome. See you next time. Bye.
Bye.